Until noon, this is Neil Mitchell.
Good morning. Some pretty basic questions today. When you're in trouble in Victoria and you call for help, can you get through? Does it turn up? Call an ambulance in particular. Call police. Call the fireys. Call the Emergency Services Telecommunications Authority. Doesn't matter. Call 000. Does it turn up? Government has announced yet another inquiry into our supply of emergency services, and the tip is it could get worse. There could be 100 extra COVID cases a day for the ambulances next week. Graham Ashton, former Chief Commissioner. Thank heavens we have former chiefs. They spend all their time investigating. He's going to investigate this for the government. Obviously the services are stretched, but how many damn inquiries we had over the years? Anyway, if you have trouble getting through to emergency services, getting an ambulance, getting police, getting fireys in the past few weeks, let's focus on the past few weeks. Give me a call some stage this morning. Also today, mandatory vaccination of authorised workers. A lot of people are stressed about this, bosses and workers. We've just got our hands on the details of how it's going to operate. Very quietly released overnight. Got an expert going through those details, and he'll tell you just how this will affect you from next week. Bit of a rush job, but this is going to be crucial to the way the world works. And this one, it's not the biggest issue going around, but it's a bit symbolic. Has Daniel Andrews got a bit of a memory problem, do you think? Can't remember anything about hotel quarantine. We remember that. He couldn't remember. He can't remember whether he sent text messages to Peter Marshall at the Fireys Union. Can't remember. And yesterday, when he should have been wearing a mask, he forgot, didn't remember. Have a look. It's on 3ow.com.au. This is the bloke who finds you for having a beer at the park and chases around kids for being on the play equipment. I think he might have to fine himself. The tradies in this piece of footage are wearing masks. The camera crews are wearing masks. The reporters are wearing masks. He's strolling along outside, back of Parliament, no mask in sight. Clearly a memory issue. But Premier, if you're going to lock us up for lapses and find businesses who are trying to do the right thing, well, you've got to pay the price yourself. Your views on that, have a look, 3ow.com.au. It's not the biggest issue of the day, as I said, but maybe he could just apologise at the press conference, say he's made a mistake, admit for once he's not perfect, and give $200 to charity. Move on. Now, first today, the Ideas Factory is back and open and running now. I want to hear from you. 96900 693 13 13 32. Time and again, you've proved you're the best ideas people in Victoria, and we need ideas to relaunch Victoria. I want to explain how. It's 250 days today. Melbourne's been locked down, far and away the world's most locked down city. Victoria, lesser degree around the state. There are protests around the world about what we're doing here in Victoria. We're now 64 days into our latest lockdown, 2 months into a 1-week lockdown. We've got an image problem, we've got an energy problem. This is where I want your ideas. Specifically, the nicest way, in the nicest way, how do we exploit Kylie Minogue? 96900 693 13 13 32. How do we exploit Kylie Minogue, who's coming back to live in Melbourne? Let's think outside the square. How do we do it? She's very much a Melburnian who happens to be an international superstar. Kylie and her family have shown how much they care about Victoria and what they can do. But we've got to do this properly. I mean, the Lord Mayor's a bit embarrassing today. She's going on about, with the puns about Kylie's songs, things like, oh, Kylie, we can't get you out of our heads. And she wants her in hot pants shimmying down Burke Street. No, Queen of Moomba, no. We can do better than that. Where's Michael Gudinski when we need him? We need suggestions too. 1/3 of tourism businesses are likely to close in the next few months. So, 96900 693 13 13 32. What can we do with Kylie and some of our other international names to re-establish Melbourne, to reinvigorate Melbourne, to give us a bit of confidence back and tell the world, hang on, yeah, we've been through hell, but we're here. Now, first thing, they've got to call Kylie and get her on board. I'd be astounded if she doesn't do it. She clearly loves Victoria. But we have to second think outside the square. Forget the hot pants. I mean, what do? Get her busking in Burke Street. Get her at the MCG. Get her in the middle of a re-kick Melbourne and Victoria campaign that promotes us as coming back. And then why stop at Kylie? Who else? Let's sign up every Victorian with an international name. Barry Humphries. He'd be great. Eric Banner. Hugh Jackman lived here for quite a while. He could sing I Still Call Victoria Home. The Hemsworths, they might be Byron Bay hippies now, but they were Victorians. Tones and I, Geoffrey Rush. Maybe we get a superstar panel together. Who could we add to it to be proud of Melbourne and help lead us out of it? I want ideas, please. 900 693 13 13 32. Here's a strange one. Now, this was said to be at one stage the most perfect pop song ever written, and this is from Kylie Minogue. Could we remake this? Can't get Melbourne out of my head, or something like that. Use it, exploit it, do something different. Kylie. Okay, well, the words will probably need some work, but based around that, I just can't get Victoria out of my head. I don't know, maybe we write a new one. Get Mike Brady to write Up There Kylie or something. Maybe get a new one. 900 693 13 13 32. What about a concert to sort of welcome everybody back? Welcome back. A TV telethon, a series of ads. You are the experts here. We need to restore pride, re-kick Victoria. I don't like the ideas coming out of Town Hall. They're cliche. They're old-fashioned. They're out of date. Kylie is just the start. Yeah, but we don't want her as Moon McQueen or fashion ambassador. We've done all that. It's bigger than that. It is more important than that. Vicky, you got any ideas?
I have. I'd make a request for Kylie to do perhaps 3 concerts and pick the most scenic spots in Victoria, including the Alps, the beaches, and perhaps the Maya Music Bowl. I know it's not as scenic, but it's iconic to Melbourne, and see if she'd be willing to have those televised or telecast.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So you'd sort of be highlighting the spot. Where could you do it? Where would you do it? Down on the Great Ocean Road? I don't know.
Well, you've got the Alps, you've got the wineries in the Mornington Peninsula with beautiful scenery. Yarra Valley has got some spots that rival really any of the great wine ranges in the world. So I'd be looking for the most beautiful spots in Victoria.
Okay, thank you very much. Stay to Constance. We'd have to pay some money for that, but that's right. We're going to have to pay money. Steve, what do you think?
We open it right up. We have free public transport, free parking, all the restaurants open, everything, street performers, and we have the big Melbourne party.
And where do we have Kylie performing? Busking in Burke Street?
No, let's get her down onto that Birrong Mar, all along there. We have bloody parties everywhere.
Good on you, Steve. Thank you very much. I don't think there's going to be that sort of big opening, but I like the way you're thinking. I think they're going to be more careful than that. Okay, we'll collect ideas through the morning. There's a lot of serious business around today, so we'll get to that in a moment. 900 693 13 13 32. Have you had trouble getting ambulance, police or fireys? I want to have a look at that in a moment. And the figures are just through. I'm afraid it's a new record. 1,838 new cases, 5 deaths. 1,838 new cases, so we're nudging the 2,000, which we're supposed to do in the next couple of weeks. The hope now is that the vaccination rates kick in and it starts to stabilise. But 1,838 new cases, 77,500 tests will work out, because I think it's crucial, will work out for you just what that is in terms of the positive test rate. 77,500 tests, 5 deaths. 5 deaths. What are we up over 70 deaths from this wave now, I think. 1,838 cases. More in a moment.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell for Richie's Smiles All Round, striving to be the friendliest team when you shop for your groceries and liquor.
15 to 9, couple of tips, red hot tips. One, and this is unconfirmed, that there is the part of the health department's become a tier 1 site. In a positive case, I've been given details where they were and what they did. We're attempting to confirm that. And the other, a tip that 400 police are now in isolation, unable to work. 400 police off the road. Just further to the Kylie campaign, I think it goes a lot further. Who would you include in it? But tourism, we're told 1 in 3 tourism businesses are in danger of closing. If you are a tourism business, little tourism business, anywhere in Victoria, are you on the line? 96900 693 13 13 32 anytime you would like. Now, this problem with emergency services, you know what it's like. If you call an ambulance or the police, it seems to take an eternity, no matter how long it takes. The Herald Sun has a whistleblower saying 2 people died of cardiac arrest after the calls to 000 weren't answered for 5 minutes. The former Chief Commissioner Graham Ashton's been brought in to review the Emergency Services Telecommunications Authority to see whether they're doing their job. We've had a few of these reviews over the years, but we're heading into crisis time. The AMBO has estimated next week there'll be an extra 100 cases a day. They have to collect COVID cases. On the line, Chief Executive of the Emergency Services Telecommunications Authority, Marty Smythe. Good morning.
Hi Neil, how are you?
I'm okay. Well, obviously you've got a problem or there wouldn't be an inquiry. What's the problem?
At the moment we're experiencing a spike in calls for 000 calls like we've never seen before in the ambulance service. So that's nothing to do with the inquiry that Graham Ashton is leading. Graham Ashton's leading a capability and service review into ESTA, which is very welcomed, and that was set up by the previous minister. And so that's just a standard process that we go through to make sure.
Okay. So there's no special inquiry being run into this?
No, not about this.
This is government spin then. This is government spin. They put out a press release. Oh, there's going to be an inquiry. You're telling me the inquiry was already underway, was it?
Yes, it's the capability and service review has been underway, or got underway in the last week or so, but it's been in the planning for quite a few months now. Yes. Okay.
So you're saying you've got a spike in cases, but you have to deal with spikes, don't you? How are these reports true that 2 patients died when it was from cardiac arrest when it took more than 5 minutes to answer their calls?
Regrettably, we can't say that someone's died because of a delay in the call, because only the coroner can relate a cause of death. But regrettably, yes, there have been delays in answering calls.
Well, yeah, but have two people died in cases where there were delays?
Yes, there were. There were 2 calls that were delayed in those particular cases.
How long were they delayed?
I think one of them was 5 minutes and the other was about the same sort of period.
Okay, and what is an acceptable time? What is an acceptable time to answer?
5 seconds. We have a key performance indicator of 90% of 000 calls to be answered within 5 seconds. At the moment, we're not able to meet that for ambulance calls because of the sheer volume of calls that we're experiencing at the moment. Last year, we were looking at probably 2,000, 2,400 calls a day. This year, in the last couple of weeks in particular, we're exceeding 3,000 calls a day.
So what percentage are you answering within what period of time? What key performance indicators are you meeting?
That 90% within 5 seconds has dropped significantly during this last year, but in particular in the last couple of weeks. Monday last week, we saw probably the second highest demand we've seen since November 2016 when thunderstorm asthma went through. So the issue is we can plan, we can model how many calls we'll get every 15 minutes, and that's pretty close. But what happens is we get a sudden spike in 000 calls, and you just cannot model that, you cannot predict that, and that's where we get into trouble and we have this drop in our key performance indicator.
So you said it had fallen well below 90% being answered in 5 seconds. What did it get down to?
Well, it's getting down to around the 70% at the moment, and even lower on some days.
What's the longest waiting time you've come across to answer?
I found one the other day was about 13 minutes, and then we had a couple of calls that lasted even longer than that.
Did that lead to bad catastrophic results or not?
No, they didn't. Fortunately, they didn't. We found that about 40% of calls don't actually need an ambulance, and they can be put off to an alternative clinical care pathway. So we're just absolutely asking Victorians to consider only calling 000 if it's an emergency, a genuine emergency.
So the problem here then is I mean, we know where the ambulances are stretched. We know they're ramped. We know all the problems with the ambulances. But
Yes.
the problem here is you answering, not the ambulances getting out, is it? And these two different things. These are two different things.
Two very different things, Neil. The problem is that the volume of calls that are coming in, and when we get a spike in the volume of calls in a particular hour, for example, therein lies the problem.
Well, the union's calling for you to resign. What's your answer to that? Or to step down, at least?
Well, I can't speak for the unions, but they always go to that sort of rhetoric. But what I can say is that I'm here to lead my organisation through this current crisis into the future, as we have a fantastic organisation, very talented, dedicated people, and they absolutely dedicated to the purpose of what we exist for, which was to serve the community.
Okay.
So, Neil, we're in a battle right now. This is no time to be walking away from a battle.
The ambulance are expecting 100 extra COVID patients a day from next week. What's that going to do to you? Because the vast majority of them will be calling you.
Absolutely. And we're gearing up. We're looking at all sorts of different things that we can do. For example, we put a recorded voice announcement at the beginning of the 000 call. We did that last night, and we found that actually dropped the volume of calls going through the 000 system.
Would it be acceptable is it acceptable for us to get a copy of that and play it on air?
Probably not, but that's put on at certain times. When there's a real call spike, that's put on. And that tells people if they've got a genuine emergency, stay on the line because their call will be answered. But if it's not, refer it to Nurse on Call, for example, or the COVID line.
Have you had a look at, or you consider bringing in Defence Forces to help you?
We will consider that. In fact, I've got a meeting this afternoon to talk to all the ambulance chief executives around the country, and we'll be looking at what have other states done in this predicament, what lessons have they learned, and we'll be sharing those sort of lessons and seeing, can we share staff? Can we fly in, fly out staff, for example, just to boost us for a little while? Victoria does about 25% of the 000 demand nationally.
But it is possible. It would be possible, would it, to bring in Defence if necessary and train them up quickly enough?
Yes, because they're a disciplined workforce, so we can train them up fairly quickly. But a typical ambulance call taker, for example, would take a good 6 months to go through the training program to feel comfortable, proficient, and really comfortable with answering these calls.
Just quickly, why fly in, fly out? I would have thought with technology you could even do it from another city. Why not though?
Well, you could, but we've got different systems, and also the fact that if you've got people on the ground, then it's coming in, and what we want to do is to give the patient the best quality of service that we can, and that's why it's really disappointing when we can't get to these calls. I've been a paramedic for 40-odd years, so I absolutely understand where these people are coming from.
You ever seen it this bad?
No. In a 40-year career, I've never seen the number of calls. This is unprecedented. Okay. Last year, we were looking at doing all the modelling. Last year, the calls actually dropped during lockdowns. This year, with the Delta variant, the demand has absolutely increased, and that's what people were seeing around the globe last year.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Chief Executive Emergency Service Telecommunications Authority, 000 people, Marty Smythe.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell on 3AW. Go with insurance that insures Australia's go-getters. Apia. Get set, go.
A lot of calls coming through about emergency services and Kylie. We'll come to both after 11 o'clock. If Mr. Smythe might have misunderstood my question, if we can get that little message they're playing at the start of their emergency calls, we could turn that into a community service announcement and make it a little advertisement just to reinforce people when they call 000. Some of the a lot of Kylie callers are saying, put Kylie and a whole lot of other people on the back of a truck and relive the AC/DC moment. That's an interesting idea. And another idea is to remake an episode of Neighbours with the cast older down the track to promote Melbourne. That is a good idea. The bad news, 1,838 cases yesterday, 5 deaths. That's a positive test rate, 2.3%.
Now, on 3AW and across Victoria, this is Neil Mitchell.
The $1 million lottery, which has started for if you've been vaccinated, you're eligible. Anybody had any luck? Anybody entered it? Anybody won anything? It did crash for a while. I want to check with them later and see just... I thought they were going to start giving away money by now, and I haven't seen any reports of that. And $1 million lottery, that is ahead after 10 o'clock. The rules on mandatory vaccination for authorised workers were quietly released overnight. We've had an expert having a look through them. This will touch a lot of lives, both workers and bosses, and there are many, many questions, and they kick in a week. That's part of the worrying issue. 96900 693 13 13 32. A lot of ideas on how to promote, get Melbourne going, how to exploit Kylie and some of her mates. This is a good one from Julie. Get Kylie and other Australian performers in a mobile concert on boats and ferries up and down the Yarra. People can line the Yarra, all outdoors and nice, and the singers are belting out songs echoing through the CBD. That is a good idea. From Dave, do a special Neighbours episode, have the theme song sung by Mike Brady, invite the old characters like Guy Pearce, Annie Jones, Jason Donovan, a Neighbours Melbourne reunion. And from Damien, a lot of people are doing this. Get Akadaka on a flatbed truck singing long way to the top through the CBD. That's a good idea. And because, as I said, don't leave it at Kylie. Let's get every Victorian-bred superstar we can think of. Eric Banner, Geoffrey Rush. The Hemsworths were Victorian before they became Byron Bay hippies. More serious, petrol prices are going up. We're told they'll cross $2. Keep an eye on that and let us know. And Diana, 8.5 hour wait for an ambulance Tuesday night. 8.5 hours. 89-year-old who then went to hospital and needed a pacemaker. Sue, we called 000 ambulance and answered within 5 seconds. Ambulance there within 30 minutes. Steve called 000 yesterday, 11:30 for police and ambos to attend. Got through, no problems. Both turned up in relatively quick time. And there's another thing I want you to do for me. Have a look at 3aw.com.au. Daniel Andrews, the Premier, strolling around without a mask on. Now, he should have a mask on. I've checked the rules. There's no question he should have a mask on because he's outdoors. Doesn't excuse it. He does need to be wearing a mask. The fine is probably around $200. From Simon, if Daniel Andrews doesn't pay the fine for not wearing a mask, why should anybody else who is fined be paid? I think what he needs to do, look, it was an oversight. It's not a huge issue, but it's a symbol. And I think what he needs to do is go to his press conference and say, look, even I'm not perfect. I forgot. I'm sorry. Here's $200 to charity. And it's a message to everybody else. Do the right thing. Remember, because he has got a memory problem. But anyway, have a look. See what you think. 3aw.com.au. Hello, Greg.
Hi, Neil. How are you going?
Okay.
I just wanted to actually compliment Martin Smythe about, it was refreshing to see how open and honest he was with his answers to you. No spin. He answered them even at the detriment of his own department. But unfortunately, I think the unions might be right. He might be out of a job because he was too open and honest and put Dan under the bus that the inquiry had already started.
That's a very good point. He was, wasn't he? And so he should be. And I think most people would be. We're talking about life and death stuff. It's not working well enough. He's quite open about it. He's transparent about it. And isn't it sad that we see that as unusual?
Yeah, look, it was refreshing to see it. I think all government department heads should be like that. And unfortunately, in today's society, they certainly aren't. They're all just spin and bluster.
Thank you very much, Greg. I agree with you. And yeah, the government put out a press statement today. The Victorian Government has commissioned a review into how Esther delivers its 000 services, etc. And then it says the Minister for Emergency Services, Jacqueline Symes, today announced that the independent review would be led by former Victorian Chief Commissioner Graham Ashton. Today announced. Well, Mr. Smythe said, no, that's been in the process for some months, and it was certainly underway. So it's government. Look, it's government spin. But anyway, inquiry is a good thing. Wouldn't back away from that. It's a good thing. Graham Ashton will do it well. Ben, hello.
Yeah, g'day, Neil. Happy Friday. Mate, just ringing to let you know there was a 35-minute hold-up for all calls coming into 000 ambulance only on Wednesday night. So you had to wait 35 minutes before you could even get put into the 000 queue at Esther. So that's an industry leak for you, mate. And also, it's not the fault of the poor call takers in there. They're understaffed. Esther's not throwing the resources in there to have enough call takers on to answer the calls that are coming in, and that's what's leading to the backlog. So those poor buggers are getting thrown under the bus both ways. They're getting overworked, and they're having to deal with, poor emotional relatives when they finally get through. Yeah,
Do you work in the area? Do you?
No, I'm an industry insider, mate. And the knock-on effect is also, mate, the poor coppers out there, they'll come up for they'll need an ambulance out at something they're dealing with as well, and these ambulance delays are impacting them. So it's taking police cars off the road as well.
Okay.
So
well,
it's
look, just to get specific, what you're telling us that Wednesday night it took 35 minutes for any call for an ambulance to get through to Esther. Is that right?
Yep. So if you rang 000 and they say police, fire, ambulance, and you said ambulance, it would have taken you 35 minutes to then get through to Esther.
What time?
And then you would have sat in the through the evening, and then you would have sat in the Esther queue waiting for someone at Esther to pick up. So Marty Smythe might have been right that the delay may have been 13 minutes, but that was probably once it's come out of the Telstra queue and it's hit the Esther queue. So if that call was, had taken 35 minutes and then you add 13 minutes on top, that's a 48-minute wait, not a 13-minute wait.
Okay, well, we'll go. Thank you very much, Ben, for that. That is a red-hot tip. We'll go back to them and ask. Urgently whether that is correct about the 35-minute delay. That's scary, if that's right. Depending on how long it lasted, too. Well, it's got to be more than 35 minutes, clearly. Hello, Damien.
G'day, Neil. How are you?
Okay.
Got an idea to get the state going. We have 4 wineries around the state. Morning Star in Mornington, Roachford in the Yarra Valley, Macedon in the Macedon Ranges, and the Spray Farm at Geelong have Victorian bands only playing in those areas. And when a band's played, have video footage, let's say it's the Yarra Valley, have footage of all the tourist attractions around the Yarra Valley, Yarra Ranges. And not only that, and when the bands are playing, promote the local businesses across the bottom of the screen, like they do at the Children's Hospital too when you make a donation. And then at the end of the night, have John Farnham playing at the Music Bowl, belting out the finale. That's freedom.
Hey, that's a good idea. I'd forgotten John Farnham. Very Victorian. Very Victorian. What about John Farnham and Kylie singing a duet for Victoria?
Before.
What?
They've done a duet before.
Yeah, I know. Another one. I want a song written about Victoria getting so up and going, and forget all that crap about police in the streets and things. Let's get up and going. And here's John, and Kylie. You mightn't hear Kylie with John's voice, but to get the two of them together, yeah, they have done it before. Anyway, Damien, thank you very much. My point is, and we're getting a lot of emails on this as well, that we think outside the square. I'm afraid the Lord Mayor's reaction today was a bit embarrassing, throwing out puns from Kylie's songs and talking about getting you in hot pants and making a queen of moon. But no. Move on from that. Bigger than that. Think big. And think every... And John Farnham's a good example. Think every Victorian superstar we can think of. And I don't care if they're sportsmen. Get sportsmen involved. We've got any... international sportsmen, but it needs to be international because I want to get international attention that sends the message, we're back in action. Yeah, we've been through a tough time. Yeah, we're not particularly proud of some of the things that happened in this state. And we have been mocked around the world. There were protests outside the US consulate, the Australian consulate in New York this week and in Poland. We've got to make a statement to the world. And the way to make a statement to the world is to get our international people to help us make that statement, like Kylie. Now, John's not international, but he's huge in this country, and he's a great performer. The Hemsworths, as I said, they were Victorian. Tones and I don't know. I really think we've got to think big, not Kylie in hot pants on a float going down Swanston Street. Okay, that video is up now. We'll take a break. I want to get some expert advice on these guidelines just released overnight on if you're a boss or a worker, how the mandatory vaccination rules will affect you, because there's a couple of holes in it, would seem. That video is up. Have a look, 3rw.com.au. The Premier arriving at the back of Parliament yesterday. The media's all set up to film an interview. He gets out of his car, carrying his bag, strolls across, puts down his bag, does the interview. No mask, no sign of a mask. Now, it's a memory lapse, and he does have those. Hotel quarantine, text messages to Peter Marshall, maybe, no memory. But think about this. When he turns up for his televised press conference, he always wears a mask onto the stage, and he makes quite a show of taking it off, speaking, and then when he steps away from the microphone, he puts the mask back on, as he should. And he knows that's being televised. He probably didn't know this was being filmed yesterday. He's walked past tradies who are wearing masks. He's walked past reporters who are wearing masks. He's walked past TV crews who are mostly wearing masks. He's not even carrying one. Now, not the biggest issue in town, but this is zero tolerance Dan, the bloke who has kids chased out of playgrounds by police. He has businesses fined $10,000. We had one yesterday, desperately trying to do the right thing, desperately trying to improve their system, and they got fined 10 grand. He's got a ring of steel to stop you going out at night. Tens of thousands of people have been fined. He's the one who lectures us daily of we're idiots and we don't follow the rules. And there he is without a mask. Fine him, I think. Have a look, 3aw.com.au, your view. Maybe it's... well, it's not the biggest issue, but what do you think? I would say he gets up at the press conference and say, yeah, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Shows how easy it is to do. Everybody's got to be aware to follow the rules, and I'm donating $200 fine to charity. The footage, by the way, was very clear. I think it was filmed. I'll tell you in a moment. I think I know who filmed it. I'll let you know in a moment.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell for Carer Gateway. It's your gateway to the support you need. Don't wait until you break. Visit carergateway.gov.au.
It is 9:20. Just further that video of Dan Andrews, getting a few messages saying, no, take it more seriously. He must be fined properly. He must be fined properly. No apology, no $200 being paid to a charity. He must be fined properly. This is a man who's been playing at hardball with people. He must be fined properly. The footage, by the way, was filmed by Channel 7 reporter Paul Dowsley on his camera, I would think, as the Premier was walking up. So it's very much public place, and Paul is well entitled to film it. I hope it gets some attention. At the very least, it's going to say to people, well, hang on, you've got to remember, even the Premier forgets. And it's unequivocal. I've looked at the ruling. He should have been wearing a mask. So he could be fined. Interesting to see if he is. Okay, have a look, 3aw.com.au, and give me a call, 96900 693 13 13 32. Oh, Lynn has had a look. Hello, Lynn, you've looked at it, have you, Lynn?
Hi, no, I haven't, but I'm not surprised he did what he did. And he should practice what he preaches to start with and get fined and donate the money to very special kids that you were fundraising for yesterday, considering he did it yesterday.
All right, Lynn, that's a nice idea. Thank you. Ray, what do you reckon?
Hey, mate, listen, there wouldn't be too many of us that haven't got out of a car at a shopping centre and got halfway across the car park before we've realised we haven't got a mask on. I reckon cut him some slack, and I'm not one of his fans.
Yeah, but we're not out there chasing kids off seesaws. We're not the ones who are being unforgiving. And you've been to a grand final party, you idiot. It's all your fault.
No, I know.
Isn't it a matter of
anyway, we all make mistakes.
Oh, we do. Thanks, Ray. I must say, you're quite right. I've done it myself. A couple of steps away from the go, oops, need the mask. Anyway, have a look, 3aw.com.au. A week ago today, we announced on the program the state government was introducing mandatory vaccination for authorised workers. There's been a lot of trouble about that. It's been sent to the courts. The public health orders on this were released overnight. Not long to go. I know workers are worried about it. I know bosses are worried about it. On the line is Mark Ritchie, employment lawyer and founder of Workplace Wizards and Launch Legal. He specialises in workplace law. We asked him to have a look at these public health orders. Mark Ritchie, good morning.
Morning, Neil.
Well, it's not long to absorb them. Are you seeing any problems?
Oh, well, we've been slammed this week with calls. We've been inundated with calls as to how on earth, what's the detail. All we've got is a media release, and up until last night, businesses were trying to scramble with only that detail, and now we've got the directions which have landed last night at midnight with about a week to go until they take effect.
There's a bit of an ambush in there, is there?
Well, I think for such a far-reaching change and requiring employers to have all of these discussions, health discussions with their very nervous workers, it's an enormous amount of administrative as well as person-to-person work to do in a short week period. It's not like business stops while the managers can just put all this on as well as all their other duties in a pandemic.
Okay, what are the penalties if you are a business and you employ people who are not vaccinated, or if you're an individual? What are the penalties?
Yeah, so the core requirement, Neil, is that by next Friday, the employers of authorised workers, and there's a detailed very long, specific definition of exactly what that is, but essentially treated as anybody who's not working solely from their home will be considered to be an authorised worker if you're interacting with colleagues, going out to a site, etc. So by next Friday, the employers have got to make sure that every single one of their employees has either been received the first dose of a COVID-19 vaccination or is booked in to have a vaccination by the following Friday, the 22nd or so. So employers have got to create this health register, securely store it, and get around and cite the evidence of each one of these employees by next Friday. So that's going to be a Herculean task. And if they don't do that, there's incredibly serious fines for both the worker who is presenting to work but does not meet the legal requirements, and also for the employer who hasn't done their job and complied with the requirements. So 120 penalty units on workers, a lazy 21 grand there, Neil, and 300 penalty units, $54,000 on an organisation. So they've got a week to scramble and avoid an enormous fine.
$54,000 for business, $21,000 for an individual, but you said you've got to make the booking. What if I don't want the vaccine? I make the booking and then just I have to cancel it and I'll remake it until the heat goes out of it. So I keep rescheduling my appointment but don't actually get vaccinated.
Yeah, and this is, I think we're going to see some very creative ways that those employees who are ideologically opposed to receiving the vaccine, the ways that they try and keep working, but perhaps try and work around the requirements. So that's one of them. You know, the employer will cite the booking and presumably tick them off, Neil, on the register and go, great, Fred complies. But if Fred were to then cancel that booking and try and fly under the radar for another few weeks, sorry, boss, I was busy, I'll make another booking. Maybe they might be able to get through for a few weeks, a couple of months, unvaccinated, working alongside their vaccinated colleagues.
What about, I know in the past there have been certain exemptions for for some government work, urgent and essential work on assets and infrastructure. At one stage they were exempting tunnels and things like that. Are there exemptions or exceptional circumstances here?
There are, and they're very slight, Neil. So the CHO directions, the orders prescribe that an accepted person can get a medical exemption. And as we read it, that is essentially a medical certificate from a medical practitioner that person is unable to receive a dose of a COVID-19 vaccine on medical grounds. So now my experience with all our clients and all our people I'm talking with is that the doctors are taking quite a stringent approach to those, Neil. Very hard to get the certificate that you are medically unable to get the vaccine, notwithstanding that you're scared about it or you're fearful or you want to wait 3 months. The doctors are being very reticent to hand those out. And then there's some other exemptions that, notwithstanding the requirements, you can still have unvaccinated workers working on very limited grounds for things like urgent specialist clinical or medical care, or in an emergency. You might have to send out an unvaccinated person to do some emergency or surgical work, perhaps. And then there's one that's construction related, which will be interesting. If the worker is required to perform urgent and essential work to protect assets and infrastructure. So I guess there's going to be a few construction workers arguing that their work is essential and therefore they don't need to get vaccinated, perhaps.
The medical exemption is interesting. I just got a message from a GP I know. I won't use his name. I'm really worried and concerned about the increasingly defiant and aggressive attitude of many people coming into the surgery in response to their mandated vaccination. It's not bad enough their attitude's based on complete misinformation. They're often aggressively rude and threatening to front desk staff and seek to take out their frustration on me. It is intimidating and frightening. And this is a man not easily frightened. I wonder if we're going to have whether there will not be a network of anti-vax doctors, because there are some of those absolute wackos out there. And I did see one the other day who had provided, I got a copy of a letter he provided to a worker, which said he can't have he's worried about the vaccine because he's got asthma and he thinks it'll make it worse. But more than that, this bloke, the doctor, quoted as a source some internet expert. I mean, for heaven's sake. I mean, because you're a doctor. Anyway, that's not your area, I know.
Yeah.
But because you're a doctor doesn't mean it's legitimate. What is it going to effect? Is it going to have? Will more people work from home?
Well, the short answer to that is yes, Neil. But the orders, we've now got all of workers classified into 4 distinct categories. So this will roughly affect half of Victorian workers, some 1.2 mil out of 3.5 million workers. And you're now boxed into 4 different categories of fully vaccinated, partially vaccinated, unvaccinated, or as I mentioned, that accepted person. And we'll say there that's medical accepted. Yep. So this medical segregation is going to apply under these orders for the next few weeks. These orders apply until 21 October, which struck me as short. But what if, Neil, it continues to apply throughout November, summer, maybe even 2020? We're going to have a medical apartheid in our workplaces where you are put into this category and that the fully vaccinated will not be working alongside the unvaccinated. So it's either going to result, I think, Neil, in people having to work from home for a long period just to avoid the vaccination obligation. Maybe that's going to incentivise continue to work from home when employers are trying to get their employees back to the office. Or it's going to lock out a real proportion of people from the workforce next year, that 10, that 20% trades, office, warehouse staff, who are locked out of returning to the field in which they're qualified and experienced.
And what happens after the 21st of October at the moment? Nothing. It lapses.
It only applies to them, which is a heck of a lot of consternation for 3 weeks or so for businesses to go through. I believe, Neil, that's tied into the state of emergency, perhaps the lapsing of various powers. Whether that's then replaced by COVID Direction 7, 8, 9 to apply for November, December. There's no indication yet whether it's a short blitz to vaccinate or the new normal in our workplaces.
Mark Ritchie, who is a workplace lawyer, expert, and we're talking about the mandatory vaccination rules which kick in next Friday. Just a couple of quick points. A couple of teachers have taken these to court, and I think they're due in the Supreme Court about the 25th of October. What if a court says no, these are invalid? Everybody's already been vaccinated. I mean, the court's going to hear it actually after people are vaccinated. So what happens then?
Yeah, that's right. It becomes a bit of a moot point, doesn't it, Neil? I think what we're seeing from the Fair Work Commission, say an unfair dismissal perspective, but even leave to appeal up into the Federal Circuit Court, Federal Court. Okay. We're not seeing really any love for these kind of arguments. They're not being expedited. The employees who are arguing either medical or ideological opposition to being vaccinated are not getting any support from discrimination, human rights, and nobody's taking up their fight, if you like. So we're seeing the powers of the Chief Health Officer in a pandemic under the legislation are pretty far-reaching and absolute. So I suspect they're up against it with that challenge.
I'll just give you a little conspiracy theory. What if we get into the late next week and the Premier says, we don't need these anymore, enough people have got vaccinated, let's forget all about it. And people have gone out and get vaccinated on the basis it's about to happen, and it doesn't happen. What about that one?
There was a lot of chat in my network, Neil, the longer that this went without any directions, is this just a very short-term measure to make the bosses do the work of the government and have those chats with nervous workers, push them into the vaccination booths, get their numbers up for a 3-4 week blitz, and then let's go out it all for summer and Christmas, and it was never intended to be a long-term measure.
We better let you go. I'm afraid the line's breaking up, but I think we got the essence of it. Mark Ritchie, Workplace Wizards and Launch Legal, a workplace lawyer. What he's saying there is maybe there's a bit of talk around the industry that this runs through to late next week, and then they drop the whole thing and say enough people are vaccinated. What do you think? 96900 693 13 13 32.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell.
There's a footballer going around. He's done all right, a Melbourne footballer. He's done okay. And I remember some years ago I said this bloke's never going to make it. He is never going to make it. He just hasn't got the engine for it. He hasn't got the style. He was a top draft pick, but he's not going to make it. I'll be talking to this bloke later in the program about a little charity exercise he's undergoing. Christian Petrarca is his name. David Armstrong has the news headlines.
Thank you, Neil. At 10 o'clock, 1,838 new cases of COVID reported in Victoria in the past 24 hours. That is a national record. Another 5 people have died with the virus. You have spoken with Marty Smythe, head of ESTA, which runs the state's 000 call system, apologising over what he says are unacceptable delays, confirming that 2 people died of cardiac arrest.
He's going to bring in the army too.
The army is coming in early next week, I think, to drive the paramedics, but he will not stand down as the ambulance union wants. We're working through your interview with Mark Ritchie about what we need to do before next Friday, when authorised workers will need to at least be vaccinated the first time, or at least have notification that they intend to do so.
I love the theory. It's all a put-up job, and by the end of the week they say, we don't actually need this. I know the meat industry is complaining already. We don't actually need this because enough are vaccinated. It's just being used as a big stick.
Scare them. It's smart. By next Thursday, all right, we'll sit and wait and see. And in sport, Socceroos have become the first side in history to win 11 consecutive World Cup qualification matches. We beat Oman this morning 3-1. All of that at 10 o'clock.
Do you think I should tell Christian Pratak that I didn't think he'd make it?
Are you still going on about...
No, it's a little charity thing we want to support.
Oh, very good.
Do you know, he flew a couple of people over to Perth for the grand final that he's been helping.
Oh, that's good of him.
Very nice. Anyway, maybe I won't tell him.
That's good. That's good. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, David Armstrong. Nora, hello.
Hi, I'm just calling about Mr. Andrews being fined or not for not wearing his mask.
Yep.
And I definitely think he definitely should be fined, absolutely. He has put so much pressure on people and caused so much pain to people. He has no idea. And if he does have an idea, I don't really think he cares at all. You know, I've lived in this country now for about 25 years. 25 years. And it's gone from being a place where people would say to me, wow, you're so lucky. You know, you live in Australia. It's such an amazing place. You know, we wish we lived there too. To it's gone to now, wow, we're so sorry for you. Come back home. Why are you still living there?
Well, that's true, but we'll come back. We'll come back, Nora. We will come back. This isn't going to last.
Well, I would hopefully come back, but at the moment, it's just so embarrassing. It's so painful. I don't understand how things can even come to this. It's just. So
are you going to leave? Would you leave Australia?
Oh, if I could, I would. Absolutely. I'm still working on my husband. Just trying to convince him still.
Okay. Thank you, Nora. So I understand your feeling. A couple of callers said, well, people make mistakes, and that's right. But Daniel Andrews is up on a pedestal lecturing us all for doing the wrong thing. I would suggest it's more constructive than paying a fine. If he gets up there and owns it, gets his press conference, it probably means he won't be at a press conference, but get his press conference at some stage and owns it and said, yes, I made an error. A lot of us make errors. I apologise for it, and I want to make the point to people, you've got to be more careful. If I can do it, anybody can. That's what I'd like to see him do. And, donate the money to charity. Will he do that? Daniel Andrews saying he was wrong. Maybe. I think he should. I think it's a good opportunity to reinforce the rules. Rod, hello.
Good morning, Neil, and thank you very much for your program. For your charity coming up, I think there'd be a lot of people that would be very happy to donate some money if you were prepared to get the Melbourne tattoo on your ankle, number one, and a couple of big...
No, only players do that, only players.
And a couple of Victorians for you to consider, Pat Cash, Wimbledon champion, and perhaps Cadel Evans.
That's a good idea. Where does Cadel Evans live now? Is he in Melbourne, in Victoria?
I don't know, to be quite honest. I know he's down the beach race somewhere, but there's two significant members of our sporting community that have exceeded, so they would be two great people to get involved.
That's a really nice idea. Cadel Evans is huge, isn't he?
Yeah, but thanks again to you for everything you do for our community, Neil.
That's good of you. Thank you very much for calling, Rod. Campaign Kylie, we could call it. Campaign Kylie. And she's out the front there with... Cadel Evans, why not? Pat Cash. Would he be remembered? I think it doesn't matter. He's a Wimbledon champion. Victorians, famous Victorians we could exploit in the nicest possible way. And I've included the Hemsworths, even though they're up at Byron Bay now, because they were Phillip Island people, Tones and I. Famous Victorians I wouldn't put Jeff Kennett in that category quite yet, but Victorians who are famous internationally, who we could exploit in a campaign, to send the message that Nora's mates are telling her in the United States, oh, gee, it must be awful over there. Well, it's not awful. It won't be awful. It will get better than it is, and we can, give ourselves a bit of a boost and sell ourselves to the world as well. Not with your traditional little dinky campaigns and Queen of Moomba, something bigger, better, brighter, bolder, original. 9600 693 13 13 32. I told you this was happening yesterday. If you have a second property and you haven't been able to leave Melbourne to go and make it fire safe, or maybe now you can, well, I'm hearing quite a few councils. The government said yesterday, yeah, just apply to your local council, get a permit, as happened last year. Nobody told the councils. Back in a moment.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell.
So what's your local council doing? I suggested yesterday, get on your local council, say the Premier or the government says we can come up and cut the grass. What do they tell you? Jane has the weather.
And it's for Rose Office Furniture. All your office furniture needs. You can shop online with Click and Collect at roseoffice.com.au. Mostly sunny today, even warmer tomorrow too, before showers come in later in the day and stay around for Sunday. So for today, a top of 21. Currently 14 on Melbourne's own 3AW.
Thank you, Jane. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Neil. How are you?
Okay.
Oh, look, mate, I felt compelled to call after you having that conversation with Nora. I just jumped into the car, and the biggest, most glaring thing to me is like Daniel Andrews saying, "Oh gosh, sorry," and I wear it, and here's a big bag load of money to go to a charity, just doesn't cut the mustard anymore. It's just not acceptable. If Victoria wants to rebuild, then Daniel Andrews cannot be in charge for the simple fact that his currency is really, really not worth very much at the moment. He's not a go-getter, a do-gooder, a mover and shaker. He's now seen as a totalitarian dictator. And anyone wanting to invest money in Victoria is going to be very, very hesitant with his past history over the last 2 years.
Steve, thank you for calling. That's a whole different argument. What I've been, and that was my idea, that he just apologise, draw attention to it, and pay the money to charity, not his, in fairness. But thank you. That's a whole different argument. We can come back to another stage. CFA issued a warning this week saying you've got to go and get ready for the fire season. Yesterday, the government announced a travel permit for regional home areas to go and do exactly that. On the line, Chief Officer at the CFA, Jason Heffernan, good morning.
And good morning, Neil. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. A few people are telling us their councils know nothing about it. Is this organised yet?
Look, the permit scheme, the travel permit scheme that allows people to travel from lockdown areas to other locations in the state to prepare their properties, was worked through as a stakeholder group, and CFA was part of that group, along with government and the Municipal Association of Victoria. So a lot of people involved to pulling this scheme off. And as you know, it was available last year, and we're getting it up and running this year.
It was mucked up last year too. Council after council had no idea what was happening, and we're getting emails from people saying, "Here's one. We got property in the Shire of Ararat. Called them yesterday. Council not aware of the announcement."
Neil, I can't speak to the councils and you know who didn't tell them. My main concern at the moment is making sure that we are getting ready for this season and that people are given the opportunity to be able to go to their properties and prepare ahead of what will be a grass fire start of the season, but no doubt a few warm days away from a bad fire day, and I want to make sure that we're prepared.
Of course. What areas are concerning you?
At the moment, I'm a bit concerned about the more western parts of the state. Good winter and spring rains has led to some really good bumper crops. So we're predicting about 7.7 million tonnes above the 11-year average for grass grazing and cropping pastures. So for our farmers, it should be a bumper year, but for members of the CFA, that increases the fire risk. So we're really concerned about that grass and crop fire as we start to lead into the harvest in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so basically you go to your council, your regional council, and you get a permit that way, correct? You should be able to do it online.
Certainly. Certainly. There's information available on the coronavirus website, or contact your local council.
Okay. What are your volunteer numbers like at the moment?
Volunteer numbers are good, thanks, Neil. 54,000 in total, some 30,000 operational volunteers across the state, doing what they do best in protecting and serving their communities. I'm proud of every single one of them.
Do you know, I'm sure you saw the UFUs running a campaign saying suburbs and town crewed by the volunteer firefighters is not as well protected as with paid Fire Rescue Victoria firefighters. What's your reply to that?
Oh, look, I just simply don't buy that. Quite frankly, you don't need a paycheck to be professional. Our volunteer firefighters are the backbone of Australian emergency services. In fact, 91% of firefighters in this country are volunteer firefighters. That's 9 out of 10 firefighters. CFA volunteers are well equipped, they're skilled, they're trained, and they're out there every day serving the community. And that's all I care about, in making sure that I do everything I can do that allow our CFA volunteers to get on and do what's important.
But a campaign like that must undermine some confidence in your organisation.
Oh, I don't think it does. The CFA is trusted, the CFA is recognised, and people across Victoria have seen the CFA do what they do for decades, and they know and trust the CFA. And I have every confidence that the community will continue to have that faith in our organisation.
What sort of fire season are you expecting then? Given, it's still wet, I know, but there's been a hell of a lot of rain. There will be a lot of growth when we get some warmth. What do you expect?
I expect to see, as I said, a grass fire start to this fire season this year. But the fire danger period, as we know, travels across the state. So the northwestern parts of this state will come into fire danger period in the next couple of weeks, is what I'm hearing from the crews on the ground. And that'll make its way through to the eastern seaboard and timbered parts of this state. And it is very wet in some parts, and particularly where we had most recent floods. So for those parts of the community, that might be a far later start to the fire season, but we need to be prepared. And I think that's the key message for today, is whilst we've got the ability, we're coming into the fire season, let's make sure that we get our properties prepared, that we have that bushfire survival plan, we talk to our families and know what to do as the season's coming.
Well, thank you for speaking. Just finally, in this, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but it's been reported that the Corruption Authority, the IBAC, has been looking at what's happening what has happened between the government and government officials and the United Firefighters Union around the issue with the CFA. Have you or anybody at the CFA been asked to give evidence or been interviewed?
Matters in relation to that is best pointed towards IBAC, Neil. It's probably not appropriate for me to go into those. As I said, my concern at the moment is making sure that those people in high fire risk areas in Victoria are preparing their properties and getting ready for this bushfire season.
Fair enough, but so you're not able to say whether you have been interviewed or not?
I haven't been interviewed. I've just come into this state from New South Wales in November last year. So, but for me, my concern is making sure the community is safe. IBAC will do what they do. The courts will do what they do, and that's not my concern at the moment. My concern is making sure that the community is getting ready for the bushfire season.
What's the mood like? We keep, and that's a fair point. You make a very fair point. What's the mood like between Fire Rescue Victoria, and the CFA? There's been some tension in the past. Has it settled down?
We can't deny that in the past there's been some tensions, but certainly my observations and talking to the people on the ground, the guys and girls that are out there responding to emergencies every day are just getting on with the job. They're working together, and CFA and FRV resources are responding to the needs of the communities on a daily basis. They're getting on and getting the job done. So I have every confidence in any firefighter in this state, whether you be career or volunteer.
Good on you. Thank you very much for your time. Jason Heffernan, Chief Officer at the CFA. We've been through a few of them over the recent years, which is a whole part of the issue underlying this inquiry. And that's a fair answer too. Let's get on with it. I've got enormous respect for the CFA and the work they do, the volunteers. I know some of them, and I know some of the stuff they turn up to. Look at some of the road crashes. I know people who've turned up to see friends have been killed. Just horrendous. I've got enormous respect for what they do, enormous respect, and that's why I've got respect for what a lot of the professional firefighters do, most of them, although there's a few that spend their days trolling me rather than doing anything else. That's why I think what has happened to the CFA over the recent years has just been obscene. However, we might know more of that as inquiries continue. Back in a moment.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell for Richie's Smiles All Round, striving to be the friendliest team when you shop for your groceries and liquor.
Andy Murray, the tennis superstar, has lost his wedding ring, and he's taped a long, convoluted message, no doubt to be seen by his wife, as to how he lost it. Have you ever lost a wedding ring and then found it again? But what was the excuse for your partner? Whenever people particularly men, take off their wedding rings, not saying this of Andy Murray, but men take off their wedding rings, you get a bit suspicious that they're interstate on business and popping into a nightclub. However, wedding ring calls ahead. This lottery for the vaccinated, I want to have a check on that because it's been up and running a week and they crashed. Anybody won anything yet? I want to have a look at that. If you've tried that lottery, if you've registered, how's it going? 96900 693 13 13 32. We'll come back to the issue of how reliable the ambulances are when you actually give them a ring. anything you want to talk about, and the country town that wants to ban dogs. Really? Country? Ban dogs?
Now on 3AW and across Victoria, this is Neil Mitchell.
Okay, we are having problems with the ambulance response times. No question. I'll talk to the ambulance service later about that. I spoke to the Emergency Services Telecommunications Authority earlier, and Marty Smythe, Chief Executive, who said, yeah, we got troubles. We're trying to bring in the Defence Force, bring people from interstate, try to answer the calls. He said one call waited 13 minutes. Normally they're answered within 5 seconds for an ambulance. They've got problems. He said it's unprecedented levels. What they've done, and he mentioned this, is they've put a recorded announcement at the beginning. So you ring the 000 number and you get this message, which can be activated at times of peak demand. This is what you might hear.
Emergency 000 for ambulance in Victoria is extremely busy. If you require police, fire or urgent ambulance attendance, please stay on the line. If your health need is not urgent, please call Nurse on Call on 1300 60 6024.
Okay, that's the message. That's a bad sign. I can see why they're doing it. It's the right thing to do, but it's a bad sign, isn't it? You ring urgently. I need an ambulance. You get something like that. A couple of times over the years, I had to ring ambulances for people I found collapsed beside the road, and it's a stressful thing to do. It is a difficult thing to do. You try to stay calm. You try to give all the descriptions, but I've found it enormously frustrating if you rang an ambulance urgently at, Caulfield, and they say, what state is it in? That's happened to me a few times. Okay, anything you'd like, 96900 693 13 13 32. I hear on our news the police are refusing to say whether they're having a look at that tape of Daniel Andrews without his mask. Might come back to that a bit later. I really want to get sort of the mood of the audience on that one. But this $1 million vax competition, have you done it? How did it work? Was it? Anybody win anything? 96900 693 13 13 32. It's a non-government initiative launched a week ago, offering 100 gift cards worth $1,000, I think, every day. Potentially $1 million prize at the end. It was so popular, even the website had trouble dealing with it when it was launched. Craig Winkler is a Melbourne-based businessman, founder of MyOb, a major Australian software company and a member of the $1 Million Vax Alliance. Craig Winkler, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Thanks for your time. How much have you given away this week?
Well, every day we're giving away 100 people a $1,000 gift card. So, we're 8 days in, and today will be the 800th set of prizes.
So it has happened every day, because I haven't heard anybody tell me they've won, which isn't surprising. But you've given away, as of today, you will have given away 800,000.
Yeah, well, we will have drawn 800 people by the end of today. Actually, not quite, because we draw the second business day after the day to allow the system to be safe and work properly based on the scrutineering requirements. But and then the requirement is that to be able to claim your prize, you do need to be fully vaccinated. So some people, we give them time to be able to get that second vaccine, because on entry, you only need one vaccination to enter at milliondollarvax.com, but you do need to be fully vaccinated to be able to claim the prize. That's a TGA rule. So we give people the time they need to get that second vaccination. We don't want people to be rushing that. They should do it at the interval that's recommended by the doctors. So we make sure there's time to do that. So a lot of these early entries, some are already double vaxxed and some are still waiting for that second vax, but they are provisional winners.
So, but they haven't been paid yet.
The ones that are not fully vaccinated have not been paid. That is quite right, because we have to wait based on the TGA rules to be able to make to fulfil that claim for the $1,000 ultimate gift card.
I had a couple of contacts from people who registered Monday and Tuesday and still haven't received a confirmation email. Have you fixed the glitches in the system?
Well, as far as I know, there are no glitches in the system. It was certainly highly loaded when we first launched, and that's been corrected. So as far as I know, the system's running very well now. We've certainly had a huge response and an enormous number of entries. So I don't believe there's any issues with the system at all.
Oh, well, we'll check them through, but a number of people have said that they registered, and I think when you register, you get an email back to you. Is that the idea?
No, you don't get an email back when you register. You get an email if you're drawn in the draw. So you wouldn't expect an email straight back when you register.
Oh, okay. So you register.
If your registration is successful, you'll get a special screen saying that your registration's been received, but you don't get an email.
Okay. Well, that's what's
you
not
get told
coming
at
through.
the time you register.
Apparently, that's not coming
But you
through.
certainly get advised at the time.
Okay, but then you get some sort of screen that you can check, which that might be the problem.
Yeah, well, as soon as you press submit and the entry's been received, then the screen that comes up actually tells you that your entry's been received.
So any idea at this stage, after a week, how many people are registered?
Yes, it's over 1 million people so far now.
Gee, what are your projections, your modelling, as they like to say these days? What are the projections for how many you'll have?
Well, quite a few more than that, based on other systems like this around the world. Ours is a little different for Australia, and it's national. But the point for us is not actually about the total number of entries. The issue for us is more about protecting the most vulnerable in our community. So it's not about the number of entries, it's about encouraging people that have been delaying or just haven't got round to getting the vaccine to do something about it now. That's the issue for us.
What's going to cost?
Well, the total prize pool is $4.1 million, Neil, so it's a fairly significant prize pool by any measure. So $1 million is that grand prize at the end of October, drawn on the 5th of November. And then every day, 100 gift cards of $1,000 value. So that's $100,000 a day, and that all adds up to $4.1 million.
We'll just take a quick call, if you don't mind. This is the issue I was sort of trying to understand. Brett, what happened with you?
Wouldn't accept my email address. That seems to work fine for everybody else, but I couldn't register at all. That was Wednesday this week.
And is your email address legitimate?
Well, it works for everybody else, and it's not rude. It's it's just a normal email address.
Okay, hold on. We'll get some details from you off air. Yeah, we're getting a few. What, Brett? We're still there, Brett. Which email? Which provider is it? Which email?
Through Telstra.com.
Oh, okay, that shouldn't be a problem. It's on Hotmail. Okay, hang on, we'll get some details. Yeah, there's a few of these coming our way, Mr. Winkler. We might pass them on to your office if that's okay.
Oh, absolutely, no problem at all. Certainly, as you can tell from the number of entries so far, it's definitely working for people. And if it's a standard email address, there should be no issue with that. But I would suggest if it hasn't, for some reason, hasn't worked at that moment, try again. And if there's a problem, of course, we'll check it out.
Okay, and just another question coming through. As I understand it, even if you got vaccinated weeks ago, you're still entitled, provided you're vaccinated, aren't you? You can still enter.
Well, yes, the rules are that you just need to have had at least one COVID-19 vaccination by the 31st of October. So, for sure, yeah, that's definitely the case. As long as you've had at least one by the 31st of October, you're eligible to enter.
And when do you reckon the first dollar will hit a pocket?
I understand the first gift cards have already been sent. So, yeah, the first round of people that are double vaccinated that were drawn on Tuesday was the first drawing day. Those ones have already gone out.
And what is the gift card? It's a gift card for what?
It's called an ultimate gift card. So effectively, it gives you $1,000 of value, and you can deploy it to a range of store cards. So stores like JB Hi-Fi and Apple and Woolworths and so on. So you get to decide how to apply it. You can apply it to multiple cards or just the one, but you get $1,000 of value. You get to choose which store cards you would like it on.
And are those?
And away you go.
Are those companies part of the thing as well? Have they supported it? Have they put?
No, not at all. No.
Okay.
No. That's no, they haven't at all.
And it's not $1 million gift card, is it? $1 million in cash?
No. The $1 million goes straight into a valid Australian bank account.
Okay.
In cash. It's only the daily prizes because of the volume of them that are going via the $1,000 gift card.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Good on you for having a go at it. Craig Winkler, MYOB. Melbourne businessman. $1 million Vax Alliance. Well, if it works, it works, it works. I would hope you'd sort of get vaccinated for other reasons, but if it tips you over the edge, anybody actually made the decision, I'm toing and froing, hang on, I can win $1 million, I'm into it. James, hello.
Hi, Neil.
Yes, James.
Yes, I've actually been a successful winner under the $1 billion back.
Oh, you won the $1,000.
I have.
All right. When did you?
I'm unable to upload my documents to proceed to receive the gift card.
What? Why? You're unable to upload the proof? Why?
No, I've got the proof. It's just the website doesn't allow to proceed.
What? Okay.
It
So,
just comes up with a 403 forbidden error.
So you've won. You've got to upload your details to prove it all, and the website won't accept it.
That's right.
All right. Hang on. Hang on. We'll have a chat to you off air. Anybody else come across that? 96900 693 13 13 32. More calls in a moment. Ambulance service ahead. And I want to talk about great space movies. I've never been into them myself, but some people live for space movies like Star Wars and heaven knows what else. The best ever space movies, and why. And how realistic are they, for that matter? Calls, more of that ahead.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell for Carer Gateway. It's your gateway to the support you need. Don't wait until you break. Visit carergateway.gov.au.
9:20. Remember Extinction Rebellion? Who could forget Extinction Rebellion? Well, they were the ones who glued themselves to the road and disrupted the city, delayed emergency vehicles, tied up police and resources. A magistrate has let them avoid conviction, 6 of them, saying they're good citizens. The magistrate said 6 women facing charges were good citizens giving their time to the community in terms of activism. Now, these 6, including an ABC reporter, they did accept responsibility for obstructing traffic, was passed to that nasty process. It really did stop the city at times. Anyway, they made a donation to the court, no finding against them, and the magistrate said, good citizens giving their time to activism. Now, Your Worship, with the greatest respect, because that's what I will show to the court, Your Worship, fair go. What about all the good citizens whose lives were turned upside down here? What about ambulances being delayed, urgent trips? There's a pregnant woman delayed at one stage, urgent trips, normal trips, people just going about their business. This was disruptive activism. The good citizens suffered. Hello, Dee. Yes, Dee?
Yes, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I'm having the same problem. It won't, when I upload the thing for the $1 million VAT, it won't take my email.
Yeah, getting a bit of this.
It's thrown me to another page, and it's given me a form to complete. And I haven't bothered completing it yet. I'm about to submit it now, but it's completely changed. The page has changed completely, just in the last 10 minutes.
Is it really? Well, look, do me a favour, Dee. Hang on. We'll talk to you off air. Do me a favour. Have another go. See if you can get on. You can be a little canary in the coal mine. Just hang on. We'll have a chat. Have another go. And we'll put you on here and see how you go. If it's not working, we'll get onto them and rattle some cages. We speak once a month. Dr. Gail Isles, our resident expert in everything, senior physics lecturer at RMIT Uni. She can answer any questions you want about the world. We'll have a go at it. 96900 693 13 13 32. She's a former astronaut trainer. She's a member of the Space Industry Association. Many questions we've come to over the months we've talked. Dr. Gail Isles, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Now, I've got to ask you, because they're going to make a movie in space. What is your favourite space movie? You've done it, you've trained them, you've been in all these sorts of equipments. What is the most realistic space movie you've ever seen? Star Wars?
I think the most realistic one would be Gravity with Sandra Bullock. That one was very, very good. They used actual CG models of the actual space station and Hubble and the Chinese space station. So they actually got the schematics from NASA and China and created, CGI computer modeled versions of the spacecraft. So they were 100% accurate. They were great. Sandra Bullock and what's his face, George Clooney, they did a lot of kind of suspended motion. So they were swinging around in harnesses and ropes and things to stimulate the floating motion. And they both did that really well. So that was a really, really good film from an accuracy perspective. And the other one I like, it has lots and lots of mistakes in it, but I really liked The Martian as well.
The Martian, who was in that? I don't know.
That was Matt Damon. Matt Damon is stranded on Mars.
And why was that good? Why did you like that?
I think because it's really focused on the desolation and the psychological impact of being kind of stranded and having to survive, and all of the kind of strategies you have to come up with when you're in a very odd situation and away, a long distance away from Earth and everyone who can potentially save you.
Best space movie you've ever seen and why? 96900 693 13 13 32. Where's Star Wars rank, Gail?
Star Wars is fantastic. I love the Star Wars films. I love the franchise. It's just so far in the future that it's very hard to imagine that would be reality in our lifetime. But I do love them, and Star Trek.
And a number of friends in the medical profession who will watch, those supposedly realistic dramatisations of hospitals, and they'll sit there trying to diagnose things. Then they'll shout at the screen and say they got it all wrong, or they didn't know what they were doing. Do you ever look at it and say, oh no, that couldn't happen, or that wouldn't happen, or that's not real? Do you ever do that?
Yes, it depends what the film is trying to do. If it's trying to be realistic, then yes, I would be kind of shouting or tutting or shaking my head at the screen. If it's very fantastical, like Star Wars or Star Trek, I would just enjoy it for as more of an artistic piece of work. Something like Interstellar. Interstellar has, with Matthew McConaughey, has people, traveling through wormholes and black holes. That's...
Well, what is this movie they're making, the Russians? They've sent a film crew up. What are they doing?
Yeah, so they've sent, on the latest Soyuz flight, they've sent an actress and a director to the space station. They're going to live up there for 10 days, and they're going to be filming or getting as much footage as they can for a film called The Challenge. So the actress Yulia Peresild is playing the character of a surgeon, and she's been flown up to the space station on an emergency flight to go and conduct life-saving surgery on the space station. So this is a first by the Russians, by anyone. They've sent this film crew up there, and they're going to be filming the movie.
Best space movie you have ever seen, and what's your favourite? Star Wars or whatever? 96900 693 13 13 32. Did I also see that William Shatner's going into space? He's about 100 years old, isn't he?
Not far off. He's 90. Yeah, so the recent flight by the Blue Origin company, who sent 4 people into space, including billionaire Jeff Bezos, he had on board Wally Funk. Now, she trained in the Mercury 13 crew with NASA, years and years and years ago. Finally got to go, fulfill her dream of going into space at the age of 82. Now, that Blue Origin flight actually achieved 4 Guinness World Records, and one of those was the oldest person sent to space. So at 82, she pipped John Glenn, who was 77 when he first flew into space. But the second Blue Origin flight, which is scheduled to take place in about a week or so, will have William Shatner on board, and if they make it into space, he then gets the record because he's 90.
Would you stop saying if they make it into space? That doesn't sound very optimistic.
Do you know how many rockets exploded in the last 6 weeks?
How many?
About 4 of the 5 attempted launches. It's only SpaceX had a successful launch recently.
No people on board, though?
No people on board, thankfully, no.
It sounds dangerous, though.
It's very dangerous. You're sitting on an explosive device. You're sitting on a bomb.
I was talking to the Australian businessman who's going up. Oh, sorry, his name escapes me. He's based in LA. I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago, and I said that to him. I believe you're sort of sitting on top of a bomb, and he said, I think that's pretty safe. You wouldn't say it is. It's very, very dangerous, and everything has to go right. And, they've even changed the crew allocation of who's going to fly on the Boeing Starliner. Boeing Starliner is riddled with errors at the moment, and there were crew supposed to fly on it, and they want to take more time to get the Starliner ready, so they've actually pulled the crew off the Starliner manifest and put them onto a SpaceX. Okay.
And that to me just says they trust SpaceX as being safer.
Paul has a question for you. Yes, Paul?
Hi, yes. I watch a lot of docos, and people ask the question, in the universe, how do you create something from nothing? And scientists and astrophysicists answer that question with the equation equals mc squared, saying matter gets created from energy. They're interchangeable. But that doesn't actually answer the question, because energy is still something, matter is something, and all you're doing is interchanging two somethings. So how do you create something from nothing?
Yeah,
that's a great question. Yeah, great question, Paul. Anyone who's saying they're creating something from nothing is saying it incorrectly. It's not possible. You stated E equals mc squared absolutely correctly, and you very nicely said that matter, can be converted into energy, and energy can be found in matter. That's correct. So any process that happens merely changes one from one thing to the other, but we certainly can't create it from nothing. And this is the big question in physics, is how did that Big Bang happen? Because that was the point, supposedly, where we did create something from nothing.
Oh, thank you very much, Paul. We'll take one more call. Tony, space movies, best space movie ever and why. Tony, what did you think?
Apollo 13, probably the best one I've ever seen, space movie, because it's so real and interesting. And the worst would be Flash Gordon, or that one with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, Velocity or something. That's the
Tony, Gail was just saying how much he liked that. Thank you very much for calling. I remember Flash. I was talking about Flash Gordon this week, and I think Flash Gordon used to have a little phone which had a watch that had a video phone in it, and I thought, geez, well, we got those now. Gail, Apollo 13, what do you reckon?
Oh, Apollo 13 was fantastic. The thing I loved about Apollo 13, it's good because it's realistic. It's telling the story of something that actually happened. But the thing I love most about that film is that they filmed the zero-G sections on a parabolic flight. So Tom Hanks and the other chaps, they were all in real zero-G doing that filming. So one of them vomits in the scene, and he actually vomited because he was literally in zero-G filming it. It was great. Yeah.
Good to talk to you. Do you ever see that one of where I can't remember what it's called, where they showed us that the moon landing was all staged in the desert in Nevada?
Oh, no, I'm not going to watch that. Nonsense.
Well, are you sure they were up there? You sure it wasn't in the desert?
100% they were there. And I will add, another awesome film is 2001. It was, It was light years ahead of its time. Absolutely fantastic film, and some of those aspects of kind of regular space travel, they haven't even occurred yet. An amazing visionary, for sure. Yeah, brilliant film.
Jules Verne-like. Can I make a confession that the first time I went to see in a theatre, 2001, I dozed off after the opening and then woke up for the final credits. I slept right through it.
It's pretty intense, a bit like the first Star Trek movie.
Thank you, Gail. Gail Isles, movies you have slept through. 6900 693 13 13 32. Anything you would like. I've been working a late shift. I can't remember anyway. I was very tired. There's that scene at the beginning with the ape, I think it is, using tools, and the next thing I knew was the closing credits. However, I've since seen it. I agree with Gail. Great movie. Back in a moment.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell.
It's 25 minutes to 11. Thank you, Emma, who called off air and asked if I'd reset all my clocks after daylight saving, because I said it was 20 past 9 when I should have said 20 past 10. And thank you, Melissa, talking about getting a bunch of international celebrities together, Victorians, to help restart Melbourne and tell the world we're back and we're better. From Melissa, Shane Warne is very Melbourne, should be involved in showing off Melbourne when we reopen. Very good point. Not going to be huge in the US, but he is in the rest of the world. David Armstrong has the news headlines.
Thank you, Neil. Our news at 11. Made some phone calls. Multiple sources confirming that there is now a staged withdrawal of Victoria Police from the border regions. We've got police coming home, and we're told to expect a formal announcement later in the day.
Good.
Victoria Police won't say whether it's investigating a potential breach of mask rules at State Parliament. The Premier Daniel Andrews, seen walking maskless through a rear car park. The numbers today are not good. 1,838 new coronavirus cases, 5 deaths in that. The United States could soon become the first country to approve COVID vaccinations for children as young as 5. And in sport, talks on a contract extension for banking at the Gold Coast have been put on hold. That's a surprise, and there's speculation he might return home and possibly join up with his twin brother, who plays for the St Kilda Football Club. All of that at 11, and I can ask, did anyone mention The Martian?
Yeah, Gail loves The Martian. She said it's inaccurate but terrific movie.
I don't care. That's one of that's my favourite.
Well, can you tell me what this is from? Let's have a listen. Just have a listen. I reckon it's a great piece of music.
Thus Spake Zarathustra.
What?
That's the name of that piece of classical music. Thus Spake Zarathustra from 2001.
It was used as a theme. The Space Odyssey when I went to sleep.
Oh, with the monkeys banging the obelisks with sticks and bones.
Was it a monkey or an ape?
Oh, they were apes. But what a metaphor, yes.
That's
Smashing
when I
the
went to sleep.
whacking the obelisks, all of that.
You ever slept through a movie?
Oh, all the time these days.
What's the biggest movie you've ever slept through?
Kids movies. I'm terrible at kids movies, and I last about 4.5 minutes into Apocalypse Now. It seems to go on for a while.
David Armstrong, thank you very much. We've been talking a bit about this video circulating on social media. The Premier walking around without a mask. Victoria Police are assessing the video. As the incident is being reviewed by investigators, we will not be providing further comment at this stage. Oh, so they're having a look at the video. Surprised me a little. If you look at the Chief Health Officer's ruling as explained online, there's no question he's in breach of it. The only question is whether they fine him. I don't know where that'll go. Noel, hello.
How you doing, Neil?
Yes, Noel.
Yeah, just regarding that $1 million vax, the email address, the issue is that it won't accept autofills, like on your phone or your computer. You have to physically enter it. It happens on a lot of websites.
Really?
I tried it, and the moment it said rejected. So I deleted the auto email, put it in physically, and accepted it straight away.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Noel. Thank you for letting us know. Hang on, we'll get your details to the MVP, where you could win a Mercedes for the weekend for 3 Point Motors. You don't have to auto-fill anything and go into the draw for the car at the end of the year, brand new car. A few people are telling us the same thing, and I've just been sent a message. Somebody's emailed the ultimate gift card, $1,000 gift card. So there's a few winners out there. 800 grand has been pledged already. I want to come back to the ambulance service in a moment, and I'll be talking after 11 o'clock to, it's a little charity exercise I want to help with, and it's a good excuse to talk to him anyway. Star of the grand final, Christian Petrarca. He'll be after Tony Shaw too, who used to play footy, I think. Back in a moment.
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell for Richie's. Smiles all round, striving to be the friendliest team when you shop for your groceries and liquor.
Coming up in a moment, the ambulance service. Jane has the weather.
And it's for Rose Office Furniture. All your office furniture needs. Shop online with Click and Collect at roseoffice.com.au. A lovely piece of spring today, mostly sunny, and 21. Currently 15 on Melbourne's own 3AW.
Thanks, Jane. I spoke to the Chief Executive of the Emergency Services Telecommunications Authority, the 000 people, Marty Smythe, earlier. He confirmed 2 people died from heart attacks when emergency calls were unanswered for 5 minutes. They're supposed to be answered within 5 seconds. It took 5 minutes. 2 people died. He told me more that there had been a case that it took 13 minutes to answer. We've had various tipsters off air telling us what's going on. Now, there's 2 problems here. One, there is a spike in calls, obviously, because of COVID and the problems there, huge problems. The ambulance service said they expect them to increase to 100 a day next week. The other problem with the ambulance service is the hospitals are so stretched, they're ramping, they're having to wait outside, caring for patients before they could be admitted. The problem is that it seems to be getting worse, and we're headed for more problems. The 000 people are looking at bringing in the Army, and various other interstate people to help them. On the line, Executive Director of Clinical Operations at Ambulance Victoria, Associate Professor Mick Stevenson. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Neil.
Well, sadly, isn't it fair to say that people have died here who shouldn't have died?
I think that's very sad, Neil, and something that, any emergency service, whether it's the call-taking authority or ourselves, would ever expect. So it's a terribly sad situation, and it's probably reflective of the time, unfortunately.
But that is true. These are people who should not have died.
I suspect that's the case, Neil. It's always hard to tell in the instance of cardiac arrest whether you would have been successfully resuscitated, but if you don't get there on time, you'll never know.
There are two problems here, aren't there? There's a problem with this Esther and there's a problem with the ambulance. What can we do? What are you expecting with the ambulances? How will it go in the next few weeks?
Yeah, we're very busy at the moment, Neil. We're at peak workload, and historically we're at very low levels of performance. So we're seeing a lot of COVID-19 patients, many positive patients a day, around a couple of hundred at the moment. We expect probably to be seeing 300 a day next week. And if the numbers continue to grow in the community, we'll see more. About 20% of the patients, of the people who are COVID-19 positive, will ultimately call an ambulance. Not all of them are transported, but about 75 to 80% are. So as more people get infected, we'll see more people being transported, and the hospitals will become more and more burdened. They'll slow down further, and we'll have much longer waits, and obviously that creates a level of risk for patients, and it creates an enormous burden of stress on those that are working in the system. We're expecting things to get considerably worse next week. We're hoping things will plateau out from that time, but of course there's no guarantees of that.
What are you expecting next week? How many a day?
We'd expect to see about 300 positive patients at ambulance each day. So in terms of what the numbers look like in the community being infected, Neil, I think it's expected that it should plateau a little, but remembering that of the 1,800 odd that were diagnosed yesterday, in about a week's time, 20% of them will call for an ambulance, and many of them will be very, very sick. It's a sad and unfortunate fact that the large majority of those will be unvaccinated, and certainly those that are dying in hospital, most are unvaccinated.
In retrospect, is there anything you could have done to be prepared for this? Anything else you could have done?
There's been an enormous amount of preparation go on both inside the hospitals and in ambulance, and so we've got an emergency response plan. We built a specific pandemic plan early last year. We're working to that plan, and that's why we're bringing a surge workforce in. We've met those triggers. We'll bring in the ADF, the SES, St John, our own first responders from country Victoria, and student paramedics to service the community. As of today, it looks like we've got 497 additional staff, either trained, in training, or about to be trained, so we can provide that ongoing service over the next few months, which we expect to be pretty heavy duty over that time.
So you think you're going to be busy till Christmas?
I think so. I think we're expecting to see this particular peak run, say mid-October through to the start of November. The expectation is that things will drop down a little bit after that, but they won't drop down significantly. So we will still be significantly burdened, and as will the hospitals be. And then we're expecting to see a big run again in December after lockdowns come off. So we don't expect any respite until after Christmas, Neil. So there'll be many sick people who will be disadvantaged during that time if things don't improve, and we don't. In particular, see less people using the public health services unnecessarily. A lot of patients that are calling ambulance obviously don't need an ambulance, and so we'd urge people to call us if they're sick, and they must call us if they're sick, particularly with COVID, given the risks. But if they're not sick, then we'd ask them to seek alternative help, particularly through the general practice arrangements, and see their normal GP. If they're in a COVID pathway, they can call the COVID pathway. If they've got alternate ways of getting to hospital and well enough to do so, they should do so.
Hard call to make. I was talking to a very senior emergency physician the other day, and he said even in his own case and his own family, he finds it a big decision to make about whether to seek medical care or call an ambulance for themselves. Even there's a highly qualified doctor. So it is a hard call, isn't it?
It is a very hard call, Neil. But we do get a lot of calls for relatively innocuous things, and so they're relatively obvious that you shouldn't have called ambulance. But there are, of course, those cases where you're undecided, and if that's the case, then you need to call us. If you're unwell enough to think you need an ambulance and there's risk, then you need to call. And we're particularly worried about the elderly, and I'm worried when we talk about not calling ambulance that the elderly won't call us because they tend to be very responsible and good citizens. That those people who are elderly and sick, they need to continue to call us. They're a big part of our ambulance population, and we need to be seeing them when they're sick.
We've talked about the ADF. When will you have boots on the ground from ADF?
They'll be here Monday, Neil. The expectation is a number of them have already been trained by us last year. They'll do 2 days refresher and they'll be out on the road by the middle of next week. And then hopefully over time the numbers will increase and as so they'll be with us probably till after Christmas, all things being equal, if the supply is there.
Have you got enough vehicles to handle it?
Yeah, we think, Neil, ultimately with our own vehicles from private contractors and vehicles from St John, we can probably provide an extra 200 or 200 plus. So we've got a reasonable reserve fleet. We've got new vehicles coming on board that will divert to this campaign. So we're pretty comfortable for vehicles. Our staff will be our biggest issue, but as I say, at the moment we look like we've got 497 extra, plus we've got our own staff very generously cancelling their annual leave and long service leave, and we've got people volunteering to do extra work on overtime. So it's all hands on deck, and we are very busy, but at the moment we expect to be able to upscale quite significantly.
Who will make the calls on diverting to other services?
We do that now, Neil, of course. I think Melburnians will be pretty familiar, or Victorians will be pretty familiar with the fact we run a secondary triage service. We already divert 30% of our ambulance workload through that service every day. Half of them come back to emergency ambulance, others go to alternate services. We're actually changing our response grid this week. We've made amendments last week, we've made amendments yesterday, we'll make more amendments next week, where we push cases that normally get an emergency response through to that referral service. We do need to preserve emergency ambulances for serious emergencies, and so we will be changing our response model over the coming weeks. So we've been very clear about that. It's always been part of our plan, and reducing demand is one way of improving the system, and improving supply is the other. So we will work at both angles all of the time.
Okay. We got a suggestion that during the week there was a 35-minute delay in some calls getting through to ambulance through Esther. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of Esther calls taking a very long time this week. The exact times I'm unsure of, Neil, but I know some were inordinately long. That's right.
So Esther can't cope? Not doing good, not doing well enough at the moment?
Well, I think I'd leave commentary on Esther for Esther, but I think it's very clear to the community if Esther aren't picking up calls, we've got a very significant problem.
Can you see an answer to it?
Well, I think in Esther's, there's a couple of things. One is people calling Esther only when they need to, so only calling 000 when you need to. Esther obviously got some work to do in relation to staffing and so on. Plus, there's some other mechanisms we can put in place to reduce the time taken when someone's on a call, and we can reduce the amount of time spent on less important calls. So there are some things to be done, and those things are being worked on, I know.
Thank you for speaking to us. Scary times, would you agree?
Yeah, very much so, Neil. These are dire times, and I think people in the community need to understand that. And it is a very difficult time for staff, our staff working in the system, and we've got very skilled doctors and nurses in this city, but they're seriously under pressure at this time.
All the best. Let us know if we can help. Thank you for speaking with us. The Executive Director, Clinical Operations Ambulance Victoria, Associate Professor Mick Stevenson. There is a message, I'll replay it in a moment, which is going when you do call an ambulance at Esther, the 000 number, and they're overloaded. They're advising you what to do, and it's really repeated there by Associate Professor Mick Stevenson. But his bottom line at the very beginning there, and I'm afraid that's inevitable, people will die who should not die and otherwise wouldn't die. That's the sort, and that's not from COVID necessarily. That's the situation we are in at
Until noon, you're listening to Neil Mitchell on 3AW. Do more of what you love with Apia, the go-to insurer for retirees.
Okay, we are coming up to the news. Do you know Australians eat 17.3 million eggs a day? Of course you didn't know that. Nobody'd ever know that. How many eggs do you eat? And what are the best recipes for eggs? We need that diversion in the time ahead. We're going to see what the police are going to do about whether they're going to fine the Premier or issue a fine against the Premier. Maybe we'll hear from him in this hour. I want to talk about other silly things too, like wedding rings. If you or your partner's ever lost your wedding ring, what was the excuse you gave? What was the excuse you gave? Can somebody give me a bit of a petrol update? We're expecting it to nudge $2. What is happening with petrol prices anywhere around Victoria? 96900 693 13 13 32. We may have an update on the COVID figures in the next hour. As you know, it's a new record, 1,838, 5 deaths, 2.3% of people tested were positive. That is up on yesterday. And People are expecting me to fawn and fall about and be found speechless. Maybe I will be. 96900 693 13 13 32. Maybe all those things will happen, because in aid of charity in the next hour, we'll be talking to Christian Petrarca.
Now on 3AW and across Victoria, this is Neil Mitchell.
A lot of emails on the $1 million Vax lottery from John. Work fine for me. Check your junk email box. Dale, I got an email confirming my entry. From Sabina, you got to make sure not to have an empty space at the end. And Tony, I can't even get onto the website. And Julie, I've just entered the whole family. So it does seem to be working quite well. 96900 693 13 13 32. Anything you'd like to talk about? Working from home. Working from home is with us for a long time. Do you get an allowance to work from home? That's one of the things I'd like to talk about. I also want to come back to the Daniel Andrews video that I'm a little surprised, but the police have said they're investigating. This is a video filmed by Paul Dowsley from Channel 7 as the Premier was arriving at the back of Parliament to speak to the media. And he gets out of his car, he walks, 20 yards? 15, 20 yards. He walks around about 20 yards, I suppose, from his car, walks past the TV crews and the journalists, puts down his bag and goes and stands in front of the microphone. At no stage is he wearing a mask. On my reading of the regulations, he's definitely in breach. But should he be fined or not? What do you think? Little poll, 96900 693 13 13 32. Should he be fined for that or not? Daniel Andrews has been zero tolerance Dan. He's been unmoving on people breaching rules. We've had playgrounds closed and told you can't take your mask off to sip a drink, all these sort of things. And he's been pretty much lecturing us all the way through and threatening us that we had to do the right thing. Now, maybe that's fair enough to do that or not. Regardless of what you think, there is argument that he then has to live up to it when he is found to be doing the wrong thing himself. But does he have to be fined? Should the police be fining him? Would it be better if instead of that he got up at his press conference, whenever it is, and said, yes, look, I've made a mistake and it shows how easy it is to do and I'm really sorry for that. I'll donate the equivalent of the fine to charity. Is that what he does? Use it as a positive. 96900 693 13 13 32. Be interested in your view. I would just draw the comparison. He clearly knows how important appearances are in this case, because whenever he does his daily press conference, he walks onto the stage wearing his mask. He stands at the podium and removes his mask. He speaks, and when he's finished, he returns the mask and walks away. So he knows how important those appearances are, and he'd forgotten them. Anything else too? 96900 693 13 13 32. Getting a message from a lot of people too that they're stuck in quarantine, having been COVID positive, and just cannot get approval to get out. We had a person who'd been in there 20 days. And somebody